Some players in Rainbow Six Siege prefer attacking and others defending. If you're one of the players that finds defending a bit of a struggle, then today's video might be for you, where I will be going through the top tips when defending for new players. Hey guys, today I have my top 5 tips in defending for beginners. This is the reverse of my previous video where I went through attacking, and if you'd like to check that out then you can do in the description and on the cards on the right hand side. So let's get started with defending with number 5, which is going to be anti-hard breach. When you're defending, you need to make sure you're denying the attackers as much as possible and prevent hard breaches from breaking through. So you can do this in a number of ways, but particularly with 3 operators, Mute, Bandit and Cade. So Mute has mute jammers that can be placed behind reinforced walls and will jam the ability placed on the wall or hatch. Just bear in mind, jamming hatches only works in certain sites on certain maps, like Basement Site on Oregon. Obviously this is pre-rework. I have no idea if it works the same way on post-rework, which we'll be getting very soon in the next big update. Also remember, mute jammers are also used for denying intel. So you can deny reinforced walls, but also place them where you can deny attackers intel by placing them where a drone can't get through and the attackers can't see a jammer easily to take out. However, the other 2, Bandit and Cade, are primarily used for denying hard breaches through electrifying the reinforced walls and hatches, which upon impact will destroy anything placed on them. So for Bandit, he can electrify up to 4 walls with his 4 batteries, and Cade has 2 electrical claws. Now each electrical claw can actually electrify up to 3 walls. If you place it in the center of the 3 walls carefully and you know where to look for, it can electrify all 3, and Cade also has the advantage of electrifying hatches as well. But obviously also you've got to bear in mind that those anti-hard breaches can be countered by the attackers by Thatcher, Cali, Twitch and Maverick, so bear that in mind when using those operators. Moving on to tip number 4, rotations and hatches. Very important. First of all, rotations are very useful getting out to flank, and if you find yourself in a sticky situation where you're pinned down, then they can also be useful as well. So when I say rotations, they're usually placed in a bomb site between the 2 objectives through a soft wall, and you can do this by using a shotgun or an impact. So they're just a lot easier to defend, and that's the reason why we put them in, and so you have easier access to them instead of blocking it completely off, and so it makes it easier for you and more difficult for attackers. And rotations can also be in the form of a hatch on the same floor, so that you can drop down and then flank all the way back up, and this can be applied on any game mode, not just bomb. So again, that kind of pinned down situation, you can drop and then come back round. Obviously this requires a bit of map knowledge, but once you're more comfortable with the maps that you're on, then you can start doing that, jump down, go around if you are being cut off or you don't want to peek an angle you're being pinned down with. Now moving on to hatches as well. Obviously previous tip I mentioned about electrifying the hatches, but it's very important that you actually reinforce them, because that way the attackers don't have they can't vertical play as much, and vertical play means you have the high ground, and when you have the high ground you have a better angle rather than looking upwards. But it can go both ways if you know what you're doing. So learn where the hatches are and reinforce them if you can. Moving on to tip number 3, droned out. Being droned out can be annoying when defending, so how can you make sure that being droned out won't compromise your position? So first of all, you do this by taking out the drone first, then that denies them any further intel, and constantly moving your position once droned out, because once you're droned out they are expecting you to be there. So if you make this a habit of yours, every time you're droned out you move, even if it's ever so slightly to a slightly different angle and a different position. Even if you shuffle over say 10 paces, it's still a lot different. So if an attacker does decide to push you, they expect you to be there, but you've actually moved, and then you can have the advantage. So that is a very good tip that will really be coming in useful. Also, holding the angle too long can be beneficial and useful in case you are spotted, because sometimes you might drone somebody out, but you might be communicating with somebody, and you might not mark them because you've mentioned it. So it's always good. Kind of a guide for this, my personal guide is don't hold an angle longer for 30 seconds, then move, but also you can always move back to that original angle later. Tip number 2. Gadgets and deployables. Now, understanding gadgets can help you and your team defend better against the attackers, as each gadget can be used for a different purpose or situation. Every operator has a slightly different choice when it comes to. Usually, you have a choice between 3. And what you get is barbed wire, bulletproof camera, natural sail, deployable shield, and impact grenades. For the purpose of this video, I'm only going to talk about 3. The barbed wire, the bulletproof camera, and the deployable shield. So the barbed wire is probably the most underused and underrated defender gadget in my opinion. So not only can it be electrified by Bandit or Cade, it also slows down attackers and creates noise. The latter is the reason why I bring barbed wire over any other gadget. A lot of the time you are relying on sound to determine which direction a attacker is coming from, and barbed wire aids this either by the attacker walking through it and destroying it, or with the 2 melee strikes it still creates noise, and that is why it's so useful. 80% of this game is probably sound. Use sound to your advantage, and that's why barbed wire is really useful. And put it down in places where would be useful, where you can't see it, you don't have a direct line of sight, but say it's on some stairs coming down or going up to the objective. That way you can tell if they're coming up or coming down, and that's where you can get yourself prepared and it's less of a shock. Bulletproof cameras, on the other hand, aren't used as much as any gadget from what I've seen. I have started to see them a little bit more now, but it doesn't mean they're not useful. They give you intel where attackers are coming from, and if you place them in the right place, it can help you win at the right time. But also bear in mind they can be destroyed by explosives and through melee. So they are useful, just I personally like bringing barbed wire over anything else. Deployable shield is also used a bit more, and they have recently upgraded them. They've added the little slits where you can see through them, so it's become a little bit more popular and a little bit more balanced. So although they can be destroyed by explosives, they are very useful for suppressing bullets flying your way. So if you need to protect yourself from a particular angle, or you're in an open exposed site, placing down a deployable shield can not only hide you, but it will maybe save you from being shot easily. And that's me moving on to tip number 1, pushing attackers. Now, pushing attackers at the wrong time can lead to losing or throwing the round, so when should you push attackers? Well, first of all, you need to understand the defenders don't have to ever push attackers unless you want to create pressure on them. Remember, they need to come to you to complete the objective, and all you need to do is run down that timer the best you can. However, push them can sometimes have its benefits. The time that you would push an attacker is when they are at a disadvantage, whether that's by a flank from the rear if you're a roamer, or because they've just activated a trap, so you can push them knowing that they're disorientated or hurt, and so you can go in for the frag. But also bear in mind they might have backup, more than one attacker might be there. You can also push them on bomb when you hear them plant the diffuser. They're the most vulnerable when planting due to no weapons out and takes time for them to set the diffuser, but be aware of fake planting, so be prepared to get some firepower back at you. Finally, don't push until you need to. If it gets to the last 30 seconds and you push at the wrong time, you could die and end up losing the round. So think, is it better for me to wait out the timer or to push? And most of the time it's better to wait than getting the glory of an extra kill. The amount of rounds that I've played that I'm already dead and you're spectating the last person, there is that pressure, I know. Or even you're that person. I've been in that situation where I've pushed at the wrong time, even if it's ever so slightly, and they've caught you off guard and they've able to get a frag on you. And the amount of rounds that I've lost that way is unbelievable. So many more rounds can be won if this one tip was followed. If you don't push them and you wait, then that's fine. Vice versa, they can push you and win the round. So just be wary. Don't put your guard down just because it's come to the last 10 seconds. And that is my top 5 tips for defenders for you new players. So I do hope you have learned something from this video, which is what my aim to do. If you are a little bit more experienced player and you'd like to post any more tips, please do so by placing them in the comments below. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoy this content and like to see more, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications for any future content. all gaming discussions will be done in the Discord, so the link is in the description below. And I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Take care.